And hello. Thank you for choosing. Let's run that
Choice it
again from
up.
the top. Let's run that again from the top. I could do better than that. This is
We're
a big
live,
show.
though. That's the thing.
We can
It
run it
does.
again
Okay,
from the
ready?
top.
Let's do it
Nobody's
again. Ready?
watching right
In
now anyway. Here
5,
we go.
4.
Good evening and hello. Waving to those of you joining us live here on Facebook and checking out the video later on YouTube. I am your host. My name is Rod Morgan. It's almost like we just opened the show. Joining us is the man who will make that seamless for all of you audio listeners, and we appreciate you checking us out right now on whatever podcast platform you're choosing to listen to. All we ask is that you give us a follow, a 5-star, a comment, whatever you can do to help us out there while you're listening. Take a second. We appreciate it. The executive producer of this show and every other show here on the network, James Thomas Jamriska. Jimmy, hello.
Thank you for choosing to be with us tonight, everyone, on one of the biggest episodes we've ever had. I'm very excited, Rod.
That's right. We have a few things to talk about. Joining us, a man who has seen a few things in all of his wonderful years here on this planet, my friend, Chris King. Chris, I brought you in all nice for a change. You almost didn't even know how to take it there.
Well, I don't listen to you, Rod, so I didn't even hear what you had to say.
There we go. That's probably safe. That's probably safe. Another man who I'm pretty sure listens to me, but usually has a script he tries to stick to because he is our football handicapper. He's got numbers, he's got formulas, he's got plays, he's got parlays, he's got thoughts. He's our guy, Josh Williams. Josh, hello.
What's up, boys? I got to make it quick this week. I know you guys are excited about the NBA, so I gotta get my NFL points in quick and fast this week.
Wait, there's a football game this weekend?
That's right, there is.
There's still football going on?
Yeah, how do you guys
Still
feel
football.
about the NBA taking over NFL's most prominent week? How do you guys feel about that?
I believe in karma, Williams. That's what I believe in, right? And the NFL came for Christmas Day. They had no reason to come for Christmas Day. There was nobody saying we need more football on Christmas Day. And the NFL came for it. And the NBA seemed as if they just submissively took it back in the corner. But they had a plan. They knew that their most popular thing they can do, unfortunately, doesn't take place with actual basketball games being played on the basketball court, but it is a pretty popular time when transactions are happening. So the NBA went crazy this week. And yeah, we forgot about the Super Bowl all the way up until Thursday. Jimmy, the Super Bowl is 2 days away. Honestly, how many times have you thought about it this week? As many times as unmuting
As many
your
times
microphone.
as I can. I tell you, you know what? It's karma again there. I have not thought about it at all until right now when they're announcing all the end of season awards. So really, that's a smart move by the NFL. Let the NBA get in the entire week, and then they're going to get Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and Sunday. But yeah, the NBA, bravo, great job.
Chris, can you recall anything stealing thunder like this from the NFL Super Bowl week? I mean, this is almost unheard of that all of these reporters that have thrown upon New Orleans were forced to talk about basketball for a couple of days.
It's almost like something was scripted, Rod.
Love
Goodness.
it. Love it.
Okay, expound.
I mean, could you write this type of drama? Could you write this type of this back and forth between two behemoths vying for our almighty dollar, right? NFL takes Christmas. The NBA sets their trade deadline to be right before the Super Bowl. Like, I'm sorry, sounds a little bit too good to be true for these two behemoths of leagues to have this type of craziness happen against each other at the most inopportune times for the other league.
Williams, you're a man who's not a huge basketball guy, but you are always on the apps looking at plays. I'm sure you were looking at all your Super Bowl stuff this week. Were you intrigued by any movement? I'm sure you saw in NBA futures. I'm sure you saw in division winners to make the playoffs, to not make the playoffs. Were you intrigued by anything with all the movement that was happening in the numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I was more intrigued with just what happened here. I mean, This could go down as possibly the most shocking trade in NBA history. And then to Chris's point with the slight conspiracy theory, or if you even want to go like the major league route, the movie route, the Adelsons, who are the new ownership group in Dallas, they are pissed off because they can't get funding for their hotel casino / new arena. And so the rumor is, I don't know if you guys have heard this, is that they're just going to run the team into the ground, move the Dallas Mavericks to Las Vegas, where Adelson owns a bunch of casinos. So
Adelsons are Rachel Phelps. That's what you're giving me right now. 6 minutes into the podcast, people. This is what you come to us for. Williams, let's go.
So like it's wild. I mean, it seems like the Lakers always get these star-studded players just fall in their lap, and you have to wonder what's going on here.
Well, what is going on is you are our football handicapper, so we will not ask you to break down the NBA any further. Jimmy and Chris and I will take our shot at it after we get done with the game this week. And so, Williams, I gave you a second there to catch your breath after I made you talk about basketball. I know you got lots of copious notes there about the game. Let's start with, is America sick of the Kansas City Chiefs? No, we're not going to start there, Williams, because I'm sure you don't have any numbers on that. Here's what I want to actually ask you, all right? Is the better team on paper in this game the Philadelphia Eagles, hands down?
Well, I mean, that's a loaded question. I think the roster on pretty much every level is better than Kansas City, except for the two most important parts, the quarterback and the coaching staff. And in my opinion, the MVP of this game is going to be Steve Spagnuolo. And
nice.
it's a guy who hasn't really been talked about this week from what I've seen. And I've actually seen more people pick Philly.
Well, he's not the GM of the Lakers, William, so it's kind of hard for him to be talked about this week.
Exactly. But I think Spags is going to have something for Hurts in this game. And obviously he can't win the MVP, but in my opinion, if KC is going to win this game, I think Spags is going to have a huge part in it.
All right, so Jimmy Jim, Williams just said something interesting there that I want to come to you on this. So he said, basically, you've got better offensive line resides in Philadelphia, better running back, better wide receivers, probably a better defense. But then he said you got a better defensive coordinator, a better coach, and a better quarterback. How much does just those three things matter in the current day NFL?
I never really thought about what Williams said until he said it, and that's why you're here. That's why to listen to that. Yeah, you're right. Coaching does matter so much, Williams, and that's going to be the difference. They're going to win again, aren't they? They're going to three-peat because they have the coaching and they have the quarterback. That's it. Wow. I'm just changed my mind. Good job, Williams.
Look out. Chris, I want to come to you on this because you like the team building the way that I do. I was thinking about this week. The Philadelphia Eagles pay their quarterback $250 million. The Philadelphia Eagles pay their offensive line a pretty good chunk of money. They pay A.J. Brown a pretty good chunk of money. They pay Devonta Smith a pretty good chunk of money. And I keep hearing everybody say Philadelphia needs to run the football 36 times. Like how does a team that seems to be imbalanced on offense just keep doing this, Chris?
When you have this talent that is Saquon Barkley in the backfield, Rod, everyone's going to tell you to run more. All right. And he's the MVP of the Eagles. Now, you want to talk about building a team. That's what the Chiefs have really done, right?
I don't know. I'm not so sure about that. I'd imagine teams would love to have a better offensive line than the Chiefs have, right? I think what you're saying the Chiefs have done is they have a culture and they have basically roles that everybody fills, right? And they've essentially become the new modern day New England Patriots, where just guys cycle in and know exactly what they're supposed to do, right? And no one guy is really relied on too much, except for the quarterback, which also sounds an awful lot like New England.
Which they didn't have to rely on him all that much this year. He didn't have to have his superstar type stats. He had to make his plays that he needed to make at the end of games, but they didn't rely on him like they have in the past.
Speaking to what Williams said is going to make this game, Spagnola. The Chiefs were a sneaky defense team this year, Williams. So what do you got numbers-wise for us? How do you see this game going down?
Yeah, when Hurts isn't under pressure, he has the 8th best passing grade in the league. When he does get pressured, he falls all the way to the 3rd worst passing grade in the league. And turnover worthy plays this year, Hurts and Mahomes, surprisingly, almost the same. But Mahomes has 11 picks. Hurts only has 5. That tells me that Hurts has been fortunate with his turnovers and that regression might be coming. The Chiefs play a ton of man, and Goddard leads all tight ends in yards per route run versus man. In Goddard's 8 career playoff games, he's averaged 6 catches on 7.5 targets for 64 yards. Chiefs are terrible versus tight ends. So Goddard could actually be one of the guys who has a good game for Philly. And Philly D, Fangio, and I love Fangio too. He's an awesome defensive coordinator. He plays a ton of cover 4 and cover 6. That's why they limit the explosive plays so well. Fangio's D is very difficult to score on once you get in the end zone, when you can stop the run with your front 4 and then play zone behind that. That condenses the field so much. So it's very tough to find openings to attack there. And I mean, including postseason games, so 20 total games for Philly. Their offenses went up against a top 12 DVO defense only 3 times. So Philly has played a much easier schedule than Kansas City. I know it bounced all over there, but yeah, I've got some more stats, but yeah, you guys can go ahead.
James Thomas, let me ask you this. At what point would you be willing to count Patrick Mahomes out, right? So like the Philly starts out hot, right? Like what does the score have to be where you say, okay, that's it. Even Mahomes can't bring him back here.
9-point lead for Philly with 1 second left on the clock in the 4th quarter. That is literally when I would count Patrick Mahomes out. And Philly has the ball.
That's probably pretty fair. That's pretty fair. Chris, how about you? Is there a point where you think you could count Mahomes out in this game, or do you think you basically you can't count this guy out at this moment?
It's got to, if Philly's up 3 scores and they're already into the 4th quarter, then I think that's probably going to be about it.
Listen, I tend to be with you there, but I also think that that's what I want to be watching for, because Mahomes strikes me as the kind of guy who's going to figure out a way to maybe at least get 2 of those scores and get the ball back with like maybe 17 seconds left and still a chance at a Hail Mary or something. So that'd be great. I think we're going to see a lot of Saquon Barkley, and then we're going to see a lot of Saquon Barkley, and then we're going to see a lot of Saquon Barkley, because I just think that Philadelphia wants to keep Mahomes from being able to beat them. They want to keep Travis Kelce from being able to make the big plays, which is essentially what the Chiefs do in these big games. And so I just worry about how exciting the game will be. Williams, what say you on the score from both teams?
Yeah, well, remember this too from last year's Super Bowl. The Niners had the most efficient running game in the league. Spags limited San Francisco to a 33% rushing success rate. And if you want to pile on here, the Eagles faced the very easiest schedule of opposing rushing defenses this season. And if you want to dive deeper, Philly hasn't been great on early down rushing success rate. Anyways, it's been more of Saquon busting explosive plays. Hurts has done a better job versus man to zone. He's number 2 in passing EPA versus man coverage. Casey plays man at a top 10 rate coming into the game. But the Chiefs defending the pass out of 3 wide receiver sets, 27th in passing success rate allowed. This is a fascinating coaching paradox in this game, because the Chiefs have only played cover 3 less than 20% this year. But I think Spags is going to mix this up at a higher rate, because Jalen Hurts struggles with this D of the cover 3. You got to force Hurts to think in this game, make him hold on to the ball. Look, not only has Philly faced the easiest schedule of opposing rushing defenses this season, they've also faced the number 1 easiest schedule of opposing pass defenses. You asked me about the score. Fangio's defenses on the other side are really good in the red zone, like really, really good in the red zone. And Andy Reid isn't afraid to kick field goals in that game. That's another prop that I like. Harrison Butker over 1.5 field goals in this game. I don't know. I've heard half the sharps lean towards the over in this game. Half of them lean towards the under. I could see it falling right about where the over under is, like 49. This could be like a 27, 23 type of game.
Well, as long as it's close, that'll make it seem exciting. I think the best play for Philadelphia is clearly run Saquon Barkley. I think the second best play for Philadelphia is run Jalen Hurts. I think the third best play for Philadelphia is throw the ball to Dallas Goedert. And then I think the fourth best play for the Eagles is just chuck it deep, right? So to me, that just I'm not sure how that'll work out. Chris, what do you think the best play for the Chiefs offense is?
A hook and ladder.
You might be onto something there.
Listen, Rod, I'm going to be honest, right? I don't like reruns. I feel like that's what we're getting here. I feel like we're getting a rerun. We saw this a couple years ago. It was a close game then. Chiefs had a close game last year, went to overtime.
All right. I feel like you want to make your pick. We'll let Williams give us a little more stats and then we'll do the pick. So, what your pick? What do you got? Tell us how you see the game going.
I don't really care who wins. I want to start off by that. So for those of you out there that are like me who don't care who wins this game, I got some prop bets that you should probably look into to keep you following along. All right. First one I like is a race to 10 points. I think the Eagles do get this. I think they get out to an early lead. I think the Chiefs had an issue starting off quick in the Super Bowl lately. Next one, I do think, to go to your point, Rod, I think the Eagles' first offensive drive will be a rushing touchdown. You can get that at plus 500. That first wager was at minus 105 for the race to 10 points for the Eagles. The other one, I think that is a something that you should do as just a flyer. Will there be an overtime? Yes, that's at plus 1,100. Why not take a flyer there? And, of course, my favorite prop bet of the Super Bowl every single year is what color will the Gatorade be when they dump it on the coach? As of late 16, I'm going to use some Williams type numbers here. Since 2001, 16.7% of the time, the team that wins douses their coach with clear water or clear Gatorade. So that's the bet you need to make. You can find that as well as plus 1,100.
Our guy cousin Sal likes purple. He says purple's been on a bit of a run recently, right? We got purple with the Lakers. We got Kobe Bryant. We got a lot of reasons we could go with purple. Our guy cousin Sal likes purple, Chris. But I love that you're going to Gatorade for your props. I dig that. Jimmy Jam, do you have 3 different props to give to us, or do you just want to give us a pick on how you think the Super Bowl is going to go down?
I have one pick, and that's Patrick Mahomes is going to three-peat because the Chiefs are unstoppable. That's all I need. That's the Chiefs.
There you go. Jimmy has the Chiefs and Mahomes doing the Disney World commercial. I agree with Chris when he says the Eagles will get out to an early lead. I think we're going to have a lot of people getting on Twitter and gloating and yeah, great. It's good to see. Oh, where are the refs, right? And then I think some close plays are going to happen. Some people are going to start claiming, here we go. The NFL's turning the dials. And we're going to come down to a game at the end that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid will probably win. And it's like I've said for weeks, there's no conspiracy, okay? There's no conspiracy. People can't get along anymore. Everybody knows everything. Do you know how hard it would be for the NFL to pull off a conspiracy to the level people are trying to think that it is? Come on. The reason the Chiefs win these games is because they're always in these games. And the reason the plays break for them is because they tend to not make a lot of mistakes. And if you just look over the course of time, a team that plays in a lot of tight games and doesn't make a lot of mistakes is going to have calls that break their way, just like the New England Patriots once upon a time, just like the Chicago Bulls once upon a time. It happens. It's not a conspiracy. Calm down. Take your tinfoil hats off. Enjoy entertainment for what it is. Williams, here's us 3 novices making our pick. What do you got for the people?
Yeah, I'm with you. Chiefs have won 17 straight one-score games. That is an all-time NFL record. And I just can't get over the fact that Philly has faced the number 1 easiest schedule of opposing rushing and receiving offenses this year. KC has faced the 4th most snaps against top 10 passing offenses this season. They rank number 1 in EPA per pass attempt in those games. And I know everyone says that KC gets the breaks with the refs, but when you take a step back and think about what Philly has done, the Rams turned the ball over 2 times in that game. They were, 1 play away from the 15-yard line in the snow from taking the lead after we all thought that game was over. Then last week, Washington turns the ball over 4 times. They still put up over 20 points. And KC last week had 1 fumble. They lost that fumble. Buffalo fumbled 4 times last week. They recovered every single one. That is ridiculous fumble luck. And KC still won that game. And we saw Hurts 2 years ago play awesome in that game. He had that one crucial fumble. KC picked up, scooped it, score. But other than that, Hurts was awesome in that game. I don't think Hurts is playing that well this year. So I just can't get over the fact of all those things. I know Philly probably has the better overall roster. I like Fangio, but I can't go against Mahomes. I think it'll be a close game, and I think Kansas City wins a 1-possession game again.
There we go. We broke along party lines here. Me and Jimmy could not root against the greatness that is Patrick Mahomes. Chris decided to buck the trend and say, damn the man, and say he's rooting down against the Chiefs. That fits with Chris. And then Williams just has the numbers that spout that the Chiefs just can't be beat. And I mean, they only lost 2 games this year. And I really only like to say they lost 1 because the game they lost at the end of the year, they didn't try to win. Anytime your team starts Carson Wentz, you're not trying to win. That's just a football rule. Okay. It's just, I mean, it's in the books. It's written down. Everybody take it and move on from here. So it looks like next week, what we will be able to talk about is debate whether or not Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback of all time. No, we're not going to debate that because that's foolish. That's foolish. All right. It's foolish to have that discussion already. Is he a good quarterback right now? Yes. Is he on a trajectory unlike we've ever seen? Yes. But there's a long time for him to go to become the greatest of all time. More time to chop that up next week. Williams, before we tackle the monstrous NBA trade deadline this week, do you have anything else for the people on the way out?
One last thing. Andy Reid versus Nick Sirianni for the 2nd time in a Super Bowl. That's happened 5 times in NFL history where coaches are going up against each other again. The coach who won the first matchup went on to win the 2nd Super Bowl all 4 times. Last thing, final Super Bowl tidbit. I don't know if you guys were aware. The team to score last has won 15 straight Super Bowls. How about that?
If it's a close game, that's cool. If it's not a close game, that's a backdoor cover, perhaps. So always watch out for the late score when it comes to football. Williams leaving everybody on an ominous note there, almost a cliffhanger. But you know what else wasn't a cliffhanger? This NBA trade deadline. It delivered, baby. Jimmy's going to help us talk all about it in the fast break next.
Welcome to the Fast Break, the fastest 15 minutes. Going to be a little longer today in the NBA. Jimmy, Rod, and Chris are here. Let's get right into it. Gentlemen, we had the trade deadline. It's not a day. It was a week long that started with every single person who knows anything about the NBA thinking the number 1 news breaking reporter had been hacked or was seriously inebriated when we had Luka Doncic going from the Mavericks to the Lakers in by far the most surprising trade in the history of the NBA. And that's not recency bias. That's the most surprising trade in the history of the NBA, Chris.
Yeah, no, I was just happy they waited till like it was late enough on the West Coast to make this official so it didn't interfere with our Royal Rumble time.
I agree. And then it's funny because I was laying in bed, right? And in our group thread, someone put out the trade. I'm like, you moron. Okay. No, that was it, Rod.
It definitely was. And I think the only trade in our lifetimes that's even somewhat similar, and mind you, this guy is not anywhere near the level of Luka Doncic, but when Darren Williams got traded from the Nets or from the Jazz out of nowhere to the Nets, we were all kind of like, oh, geez, I didn't see that coming. The Jazz traded Darren Williams. And again, he's not anywhere near Luka Doncic, but that's the closest thing we've ever seen because we're so used to the Jimmy Butler situation, which we finally saw play out, where guy agitates, says he wants out of town, gives a list of places that he'll go, back channeling happens about contract, and then ultimately a trade gets made where a team gets hosed. It doesn't get back really anything of decent value for the player. That's more what we have seen in our lifetime. And this time we were surprised by a trade where a team seemingly didn't shop the guy and still got completely hosed on value. But Jimmy, I want to say one other thing unrelated to the trade. And God bless Nico Harrison and Rob Pelinka for one reason and one reason only. They brought our guy Zach Lowe out of hiding. We got a 17-minute surprise video podcast from our guy Zach Lowe about this trade. I was excited for the trade. I was excited to see Zach Lowe. I was excited all week, Jimmy, because it just didn't stop there.
It was an amazing week. Love the week. We have De'Aaron Fox going to the San Antonio Spurs in a kind of a win now mode for the Spurs. Last year you had Wembanyama with no point guard, and now you have 2 point guards on the team that are one all-time great and one up and coming. He's been around for a little while. I love the move for the Spurs because you get someone who actually wants to be there.
Well, this is De'Aaron Fox, basically. Like, everybody knows that buddy who is the real estate expert, right? Like, he hears about these up and coming neighborhoods. He hears about these retail opportunities, these new little sproutings that are going to come up, and he buys the spot, and then boom, 2 years later, he's making all this crazy money, right? De'Aaron Fox was like, hey, this guy down in San Antonio, he's going to be something. And then he staked it out first. He was the first guy that went to his team and said, hey, I'm not going to be around here anymore. You guys may want to get rid of me. And hey, wouldn't it be cool if you send me to San Antonio? And I'll be damned if he didn't pull it off. And he landed in San Antonio without making the Spurs have to give up the farm for him, Chris, which we've seen in the past. There's always the problems in these moves, AKA back Carmelo, right? He got out of Denver to go to New York like he wanted to, but when he landed in New York, he didn't have any teammates.
I'm going to have to give a lot of this credit for this deal to Sacramento and a lot of discredit to Chicago, right? If Chicago wasn't completely mismanaging their assets, you wouldn't have been able to have a situation where Sacramento could have sent Fox to San Antonio and still get Zach LaVine. And because he was also a Bull, DeRozan on there, and essentially just give back the rights to Chicago's own 2025 first round pick, and then get all kinds of
how dare you
future draft capital
erasure. The Kevin Herter erasure I will not stand for, Chris. I will not stand for Red Velvet getting erased like this.
I'm just saying.
So the Bulls got back their pick that they would have probably had anyway because it was top 10 protected.
Yes, but that still then would have been controlled by Sacramento and was still then protected next year. Could have rolled into seconds. But you're right, Jimmy. It's not really the price you want to pay just to get back the pick that you probably still would have had this year.
You want to talk about asset mismanagement? Chicago needs to put on a TED Talk on it.
They do a great job of getting of giving away really solid players. I mean, Zach LaVine's having a really good year. Now, is he a distressed asset? Yeah, because he's been hurt a lot. This year he's playing great. And now he's finally going back to Sacramento, the home he originally signed for about 6 years ago. Unbelievable. What else is next? We've had so many trades. It's ridiculous.
Do you want to talk about how Jonas Valanciunas is also going to beef up Chris's Kings, and maybe, just maybe, the beam's going to start getting lit a little bit more on the top of the stadium out there in Sacramento?
Yeah, Chris, what's going on?
I mean, I think Sacramento has realized they have some offensive holes in their team that they are trying to fill, right? They are essentially deciding like we have the offense running through Sabonis. We don't need the true point guard. We need guys that will continue to actually attack the basket and also improve our outside shooting. And that's what they did.
Chris, they just couldn't get Vucevic from the Bulls, so they had to get another tall guy with a V last name.
And I like that you said the word attack. Vucevic will also, or Valanciunas is also going to attack other dudes. That's something else that Valanciunas will do plenty of. He'll attack other guys on the other teams. He'll attack the boards.
Right.
The Washington Wizards, where NBA champion guards go to live out the twilight of their careers, Marcus Smart and Chris Middleton are heading to the Wizards. The Bucks get Kyle Kuzma, Patrick Baldwin Jr., and Jericho Sims. For Chris Middleton, what am I missing here, Rod?
See, here's the thing. I think people are sentimental at heart, and that's great, right? That's why nostalgia rules. That's why IP rules in movie theaters. That's why we love remakes of TV shows. Okay. So I think everybody is holding on to what Chris Middleton
Both of them.
was about 3 to 4 years ago when the Bucks won a championship. All right. That's when he was like this plucky little, hey, remember this guy? He was a late round draft pick and maybe even a second round draft pick who kind of made something out of himself, and good for him. That dude's long and gone and has had 4 different surgeries on his ankles and his knees and his legs since then. All right. So he was literally giving the Bucks nothing. Okay. I've played enough 2K to know that when you have a guy with a fat inflated salary like that, it's tough to make a trade. Okay. Because you're not going to actually get back value for what that guy's getting paid. So what you want to do is you want to try to lock in somebody who's similar, right? Which Kyle Kuzma is absolutely similar to Chris Middleton, younger and cheaper. Okay. Got to remember this is a business. So Bucks ownership just saved an awful lot of money. They got a guy who's locked up for a couple of years, and he's essentially going to do what Middleton did. Kuzma's not sexy, but it's the bare bones minimum of a good piece of business for the Milwaukee Bucks, Jim.
That also takes them below that second apron on the tax bracket, and now they're going to have more flexibility moving forward on trades and acquisitions during free agency.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's a good transition. A lot of deals were done today to get underneath that second or first apron, including Brandon Ingram going to the Toronto Raptors for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, a second round and a first round pick in 2026. What are the Raptors doing? Are they just trying to get people there they know aren't going to sign anyway, so they're gonna maybe get some free agents that way in trades, Rod?
Well, they actually have the ability to sign Brandon Ingram to a 3-year extension now. I saw vis-a-vis
Oh,
Bobby
okay.
Marks, who is the whiz of all of this. So I'd imagine you don't give up a first round pick if you're not going to do this. I saw another stat where this is actually the 4th year in a row where Toronto has
Yeah.
given up a first round draft pick to bring in a guy who's set to be a free agent. So I think they're bringing him back. And so I would say look out east for a team of RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, Scotty Barnes, and Brandon Ingram. None of those guys could really shoot 3-pointers. None of those guys are really interested in passing, and none of those guys could really play defense. Congratulations, Toronto.
Chris, we had another Los Angeles Lakers trade. They get Mark Williams from the Hornets. Mark Williams is terrific when he plays. Doesn't play very much. But they give up Dalton Connect and Cam Reddish. Dalton Connect was a huge surprise for the Lakers at the beginning of the year. He's kind of gone back and forth since then. Are the Lakers somebody, Chris, you're worried about in the playoffs?
Anybody who has Luca on their team, you need to be worried. I don't care who else is on the team. You need to be worried. It's Luca. He can beat you. All right.
And it just so happens that LeBron James, who still has a little bit of his faculties about him, is on this team as well. Come on, Chris. Don't just pass over the king.
I'm sorry, but Luca proved it last year. I mean, he had Kyrie, but has anybody even talked about Kyrie still in the Mavs during all of this? No. So you got Luca, and apparently Luca was also pushing to get Mark Williams on the Lakers. Like that was somebody he dropped Mark Williams' name too. So
Jimmy, shout out to Trey Kirby on this one, but there's the Lonely Island. They put out the unauthorized Bash Brothers, where it's supposedly Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire fake rapping, right?
Yeah.
So shout out to them for they call me Luca and I'm Mark, right? They've got to do that. They've got to do that at the Staples Center for a game when the Lakers roll out that new lineup.
Speaking of new lineups, the Golden State Warriors tried very hard to get Kevin Durant. I think they would have gotten him if Durant said yes.
Why do you think Durant didn't want to go back, Jimmy? Why do you think Durant didn't want to go back? You're the Durantologist on this podcast. You ask most of the questions. I'm going to ask you. Why do you think Durant didn't want to go back?
I don't think he wants to go back and win or become close to winning. And it's you can't win without Steph. I think that's what it is. What do you think?
Chris? Two words. Draymond Green.
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, yeah. And honestly, that's fine. If that's the reason, I'm fine with it. If it's like I hate that guy, I don't want to deal with him, I'm fine with it. That's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. I wonder if it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. but the Warriors did get Jimmy Butler and then signed him to another. It's like a 2-year extension, but it's really a 1-year extent. Whatever. He's
I
going to be on
can't
the
wait
team
for
another
that
2
fight.
years.
Butler
Well,
versus Green.
Or Butler and Green versus whomever. I mean, I'm going to the trenches with those guys. You have somebody who can create, who can give Steph Curry a breather when he's healthy. That's the thing about Jimmy Butler. He's been hurt, or he's been this past couple of months has just been all over the place. Do you see the Warriors now moving up into that next echelon, and they're going to be able to get maybe even out of the playing games?
Jimmy, here's the take for you. All right. I like the Warriors now better than the Mavericks. I do. I like the Warriors better than the Mavericks because we are going to get back Jonathan Kuminga. Okay. And you said it yourself a time or two on this podcast, Jimmy. These guys aren't just spongeable contracts who have no feelings. Okay. Kuminga is a young guy who basically thought he was going to get shipped out of town for basically a calendar year at this point now. He's not going anywhere for the rest of the year. And he's now going to be on a team with Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green, two dudes who will absolutely bust his ass if he doesn't do the right thing. So I am high on the Warriors. I'm high on Jimmy Butler. Now, could he break apart? Absolutely he could. But I'm of the belief that Jimmy was playing awfully coy. Does it disgust me that Jimmy decided to just vaporize all the goodwill he had built up in Miami over those years? Yes, it does. But do I believe he still has it in him to turn it on and be the Jimmy Butler that we've seen in the playoffs, be an absolute killer? Yes, I do. So Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and a collection of dudes who are getting better. I like them better than I like what Dallas has.
Got a couple more trades to talk about here. The Cleveland Cavaliers kind of going all in for this season, getting DeAndre Hunter. DeAndre Hunter has been that person, that 3-and-D every year. This is going to be the year. This is going to be the year. And he's been in the league for like 7 years now and really hasn't gone to that next level. But giving up Karis LeVert, who's an expiring, and Yang, I think it's a good gamble by Cleveland here. Are you worried, though, Chris, that messing up the chemistry might hurt them?
No, I think this is actually a better fit for Cleveland starting five. I really do. And yeah, he's maybe been in the league for 7 years, Jimmy, but he's only 27, right? He ain't that old yet. He's still in the prime. He's shooting the three better than he ever has. So I think it's good for Cleveland. I think they needed to do something to shore up that starting five. I think this is it.
Rod?
Hey, Jimmy Jam, cue my music for me right now, if you would. My Rod Nation is related.
What is?
My
For the Rod Nation of the week.
I am really, 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 really angry at the Cleveland Cavaliers. Okay, not only are they ahead of my Boston Celtics right now, and will probably get 4 out of 7 games in their building when the Celtics play them in the playoffs, but now they have a 6'8" wing who by no means can stop Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, because nobody really can stop either of those guys. But they have someone who will match up with them, give them a lot more difficulty in a playoff series. I don't like that. But what I'm really most angry about is that the Cleveland Cavaliers traded away an almost sure 24 points for the Celtics, and that is anytime the minivan George Nang would take the court. The Celtics would absolutely figure out a way and boom, take him right to the rim, step back three, right to the rim. And then Yang would have to be pulled. So I am angry that I no longer get to see sheer, easy buckets for my Celtics on the minivan, George Niang, because the Cavs traded him and actually did something smart and are even tougher for the Celtics to have to play now. That's my Rod Nation, Jim.
Chris, are you shocked that Rod made that about the Celtics?
Oh, no. We expect that.
I could even make it more about the Celtics when I say they just gave away Jaden Springer for absolutely no reason other than to get under the second apron.
Speaking of trades that don't make much sense, the Hawks made another trade today. They got cash and they sent Cody Zeller, go IU, and a second-round pick to the Rockets. Chris, when did Cody Zeller last play an NBA game?
I would say he's probably, if he hasn't played this year, which I'd be willing to bet he has, it was definitely last year.
Yeah, it was last year. Well, actually, no. I guess it was this year. Now I'm saying he hasn't played very much at all.
I was getting
Jimmy,
old.
did you happen to see along those lines? Jimmy, did you happen to see the PJ Tucker stuff? Do you know who he plays for right now, even though he hasn't played?
Is he back on the Clippers?
No, it's his
No.
third tour of duty for the Raptors.
The Raptors, of course. Yes,
He
the
was even on the Raptors back in like 2009, I think I saw, or something like that. You know what I mean? Because PJ Tucker, remember, he was in the NBA and then he took off and was over in China for a while and then he came back to the NBA. So, like, it's his third tour of duty up in Canada. But something tells me he's not crossing the border and taking the court.
PJ was one of those really great stories, comeback stories that didn't do much, then came back. And then finally, our Indiana Pacers. I can't even say it without my voice cracking. Get a future draft pick, top 55 protected. So basically, they gave James Wiseman and cash for nothing to the Toronto Raptors. I got nothing. It's money. That's all that is. I mean, what are you going to do? I guess Wiseman was on a 1-year deal, hurt himself was it the preseason or first game? I think it was I was at the game he got hurt for the year. I just can't believe that James Wiseman's fallen so far. So bad.
More interesting Pacer fact, Jimmy, is that the Pacers essentially helped the Raptors get their Pascal Siakam replacement because Bruce Brown and the Pacers pick went out in the trade to get Brandon Ingram.
Sometimes I just don't know. But what I do know is that Chris King, as always, has the Kings hardwood hierarchy.
Gentlemen, we have a conundrum on our hands, all right?
As always.
We have built this palace of ineptitude to house the Wizards, right? And what do? They just go out, win 3 games in a row, and essentially make some of the smartest deals we saw during the trade deadline, right? Like, what am I supposed to do about this?
Since when does the Kings hardwood hierarchy have anything to do with the general manager's moves?
I don't know. I want them to be inept, and it didn't look like they were inept this past week, and that's the problem, Rod.
I'm sorry.
So they actually played themselves out of the jester seat and handed that to Charlotte by default. We're starting there because I'm a little bit mad.
A little angry at the Wizards.
Yes.
I mean, in the Wizards' defense, Chris, they beat the Timberwolves, who were kind of a train wreck. They beat the Hornets and the Nets. It wasn't exactly the top 3 in the division.
Jesters are supposed to lose, Jim.
Okay. Well, the Hornets did.
And that's why they're there. Okay. Now let's get to it, all right? As much as I really want to give it to Cleveland or to Boston, because they're still at the top of their game as much as they can be, I'm giving it to 3 teams this week. And these are 3 teams that have been playing some of the best basketball that we have seen lately. And they are not in first or second place. Well, actually, I'll take that back. The Memphis Grizzlies are now in second place in the West, and they are going to be in the king seat this week. You will have the Knicks still in the queen, and then I am putting the Pacers into the prince because they are playing some of the best ball. They are moving up in the standings. All 3 of these teams, they deserve the recognition.
I want to apologize to the hottest team in the NBA for not making the Kings hardwood hierarchy. It's tough. It's subjective. Chris likes to think that there are rules to this, but there really aren't. And Portland, we see you. You were thought of. You probably aren't going to have a chance to make the hierarchy many other times. You've won like 11 of your last 13. Could have easily been on this hierarchy, but Chris doesn't see things in the Pacific Northwest. He has a diversion to flannel. He doesn't like tall trees.
Portland knows what they did, okay?
Whoa.
They need to look in the mirror and do some self-evaluation and maybe start getting themselves out of the cellar a little bit quicker, and I will recognize them more. But they know.
Tumani Kamara was picked in the Rising Stars draft. I mean, things are looking up in Portland.
They are. Chris, you had the Jester being the Hornets, the Prince being the Pacers, the Queen being the Knicks, and of course, your king is
The Grizzlies.
the Grizzlies. Yes, I missed that when you were ranting about other things, so thank you. for the Grizzlies.
Yeah,
And
so
with that,
the Grizzlies who get to be the king, do they get to be the king because they shipped out Marcus Smart for nothing to get under the luxury tax, Chris? Is that one of their great GM moves that then got the Wizards making you think about being on there?
I mean, listen, the Wizards did nothing but pick up draft capital, including first round picks over the next couple of years. Like they made what I would consider smart moves when they had nothing but a pile of trash.
they did, but the Grizzlies gave up Kristaps Porzingis and 2 number 1 picks for nothing. And with that, you've been listening to Balls and Brew and the NBA Fast Break on the More You Knows Podcasting Network.
Goodbye, Internet.
Welcome to the Yeah We Know podcast, part of the More You Knows Podcasting Network. You're in the ring with Jimmy, Chris, and Rod. I have no notes. We're talking Royal Rumble. We all were there. I can't believe we all went to the Royal Rumble. I mean, that's insane. Unbelievable night. Had so much fun. I don't even know where to start. Rod, start us off. Royal Rumble.
Say his name and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendrick. Jimmy, I got to tell you, all right, I kind of knew that pop was going to come at some point. We didn't know, but we knew, right? He was the TNA champion. We kind of felt it. He had teased a few things on social media, but I still went absolutely ballistic when it hit. I had so much fun. I about spilled beer. My voice was gone on Sunday because of all of the screaming I was doing. I love the surprise ending. I love the reappearances. I have zero criticism about the Royal Rumble itself. We want to talk about some of the other events happening around the area. Maybe I could give you a different story, but the Royal Rumble itself, Triple H, love you. Love you.
I found out that I continue to not have any rhythm whatsoever. My yeeting needs a lot of help, but that's okay. Chris King, what did you think about the event overall?
It was phenomenal. It was a blast. I'm hard. It's hard for me to explain it, but like I'm there. I'm on the floor. I'm surrounded by fans.
Humble brag.
And these people, they were laughing at the inside jokes just like we do. Like it was just great. Like I didn't know these people, but it felt like we had known each other because we're laughing at the same things, cheering at the same stuff, everything. So it was a phenomenal experience.
So Chris, you were under the WrestleMania sign, right? There was one whole section on the floor in front of you, or were there 2 whole sections in front of you?
2.
Okay. How was your vantage point sitting on the floor? Were you able to focus on the ring? Were there signs in your way? Were you able to see the Jumbotron? How'd that work for you?
Jumbotron was easy to see. I was lucky and had a pretty decent view of the ring between heads. Signs didn't really get too much in the way, but like the ladder match was the easiest one to watch.
Okay. So Rod and I were in the 300 section. In our section, I loved it because it was only 5 rows deep. So we were in the 5th row. Rod and I could stand the whole time or whenever we wanted to. And other than the concession workers who were standing behind Rod, no one was behind us. So that really was, I thought our seats were really good. Had a nice view of the ring. We could see enough of the ring. We'd still have to look at the Jumbotron a little bit to get those closer shots in. But I thought the seats were really good.
Well, I loved being right on the end as well. So like I could like just spin around. I could do a Joe Henry and spin around and head out, and I could grab myself a Mick Ultra in about 3 or 4 minutes with the way some of those lines were moving. Now merch lines weren't moving as fast, but beer lines you could get through in 3 or 4 minutes. So that was good. I loved being able to stand. And the thing that I didn't think about, Jim, is that like, thank goodness nobody actually got eliminated in like that 10 seconds between somebody coming out, because if you'd have somebody on the ropes or the edge and then they started hitting the countdown clock, they'd go away on the Jumbotron and put the countdown up there. So then you'd be like, wait a minute, what happened? And Chris, I'm jealous of you being able to see the ladder match, because you're right, when dudes were up on the top of the ladder, but their business over there by the ring desk and all that, that was tough for us to see from our vantage point. I had zero idea what happened at the end of the ladder match. And then like kids were crying out in the concourse after the match. And like parents were having to explain to their kids that Kevin Owens wasn't dead. And I had trouble even being able to see that from our seats.
I think we had to explain to each other too, that he wasn't dead, Chris.
I mean, do we know he's not?
Well, he came back on Raw, so I'm assuming that was him. And
He
not
was
John.
hurting.
Joke.
You know, he was acting really,
So
really
a
good.
couple
But he was,
couple things. Lucas Oil Stadium was jam packed. There were 2 rows at the very, very top that were blacked out because I think you couldn't see it all. You wouldn't be able to see it all there. And then the production side, there was some open seats because that's what they always have. But everything else, it was jam packed, sold out, legit 65,000 people. That is a terrific venue for the Rumble, for WrestleMania, for SummerSlam when it comes in. It really worked out well. And I'm going to say kudos to the WWE fans. When the matches were going on, there was not a soul in the walkways in the stadium. Everyone was out there watching. You could take we'll talk about the big bathroom break here in a minute, which I did not go to the bathroom for. But it was great because when someone came out for the Rumble, you saw them walking, you had like 2 minutes. So you ran out real quick. The merch lines, there was no one in merch lines. Soon as the matches ended, bam, everyone went out, went to the bathroom, went in the lines, and everyone came back out. So shout out to the WWE universe there. I thought that was really good.
I have one complaint because that was not my experience, Jim.
Okay.
I was in a merch line so long that I missed the tag team match.
Well, I mean,
I would say you didn't really miss anything, but then Jimmy'd be mad at me.
I'm serious. Like there
Yeah.
was only one merch table
and that was on the
near.
floor, right? On the floors where you went in.
Well, I went. It was I forget Southgate entrance sections like
Okay.
120 is usually where we went in. And then we had to walk down onto the field essentially.
Okay.
So I had to go back up to that first level, and there was only one merch table there unless I wanted to walk a ways.
Sure.
And they had 2 lines stretching both directions. All of them were long for the entire event.
Okay, so we're going to talk about a long merch line here in 1 second, Chris. But what merch did you pick up?
I did not get any merch from that merch table because I still had probably another 20-minute wait, and they were starting
wow.
the next match, and I bolted.
I'm sorry. That's so you didn't get any merch at all?
No, I did order something from the WWE shop. I will show you guys when I get it.
Okay, that's good. So, we drove up early. Rod was staying with Dax, so he lives kind of downtown. But my kids, my sister, and my boy Vinny, shout out, he had a blast as well. We went down really early. We went to the WWE Royal Rumble Superstore. The line was 45 minutes to get into the Superstore. Now, I will say the line moved pretty good. I mean, there was literally that many people there, okay? But once you get into the Superstore, they have you continue to go around. The Superstore itself wasn't that big at all. There was nothing super about it. There was hardly any store about it because most of the stuff was gone. It's like, well, you should have gone there the day before. There are 65,000 people coming. Have a couple more shirts than you have. There were so many size smalls. That was, thank goodness. I felt bad because my daughter had gotten a Bianca Belair shirt or sweatshirt, and it came in from WWE shop. It didn't fit her right. It was just kind of, it is what it is. Thank goodness they had a John Cena, like the last size that, her size in that. I grabbed that real quick. We got that. My son Jackson got a Seth Rollins, a $35 Seth Rollins figure. We needed a new one, so that's good. So Rod was happy with that. And
we don't talk about Seth Rollins enough on this podcast. Shout out to Jackson.
Know. So that was good. I mean, it was not anywhere near worth waiting that long for. I really wish we would have found out about that earlier. Rod, what did you end up getting?
I did not get anything at the not superstore. The line again, we felt this at NBA All-Star Game. Chris was there with us. They had the fan experience there for the NBA at the convention center, which is a huge convention center. All these huge sprawling hallways that they advertise you can walk and be out of the cold. Well, you know what I would say? Like, let's have some stanchions, right? Let's invest in some stanchions.
Ooh.
Let's invest in a few more people that work in the convention center, or the WWE or Fanatics themselves can invest in a few more people, and let's do a little bit more crowd control, right? Let's funnel a few more people. And let's also, instead of having one long line that just stretches down these two hallways to have everybody feed into a small room and then have them go through even more lines, let's just put all the stuff up in the hallways. How about that? How about that for an idea? The way that, like, if you're ever at a concert and you just have like an aisle you walk down and everybody's got their booths set up on either side. Why not do that? I have zero idea why they continue to set up the convention center the way that they do to handle a mass crowd, because it seems to me that they think they're putting in place processes that will control a crowd, and all it seems to do is create a crowd and chaos and get people even closer together. And that to me seems dangerous. So I don't know what's going on at the convention center. Somebody needs to get a hold of that.
I will say the people around us were all pretty cool about it, and everyone seemed to follow in line for sure. But yeah, that was very odd. And as someone who's done events for 2 decades, it seemed like you could have done a little bit better. Yeah, they had stanchions. They had stanchions for a crowd of 3,000 people. They did not have a stanchions for of literally 25,000 people probably went through there on that day for sure. The event itself. Oh, go ahead, Rod.
They couldn't even get people in. That's the other thing, Jim. We're there 90 minutes before the event's starting, and people are lined up outside Lucas Oil Stadium. What are we doing? 60,000 people get into that stadium for an NFL game. How can we not get them in for the Royal Rumble?
Well, it happens for the NFL games too. On that one side where everyone tries to go, and if you go on the other side, like we kind of ended up going, we eventually got in pretty easy. Of course, my Ticketmaster timed out, and I had to put an authentication code in right as we got up there, but that's okay. It was fine.
God, I was never more scared, Chris. Honestly, what was I going to say? You know what I mean? Jim's the responsible one of the group. He's got the tickets on his phone, and then all of a sudden we were off to the side of the line, and we're just standing there, and I'm like, oh my God, hopefully Jimmy's phone comes back up.
Oh my God, that angered me so much. And Ticketmaster, you know what? I'm going to go the Jim Demnation here.
Yes, let's do it.
Ticketmaster. It says I can't put it in my wallet on my iPhone because it's to somebody else's account. I've never had another account. I've never had another iPhone. This is my iCloud. I don't understand what's going on. And you ask Ticketmaster, oh, you got to go to iCloud. You ask iCloud, oh, you got to go to Ticketmaster. Apparently, I can never put tickets in my account again. Really ticks me off. I'm not going to lie on that. The event itself, 4.5 hour event. It was like a 9-hour day for us. I thought the event went by pretty quick. I mean, for 4.5 hours, I was really not bored much at all. I know some people were bored by the third match. I was not bored at all, Chris. How did you feel?
No, I thought it went by quick, right?
Okay.
I mean, it didn't feel like the women's rumble lasted as long as it did, and it definitely didn't feel like the men's rumble lasted as long as it did. That was
I think
over
that's
90
the longest
minutes.
match in WWE history. I think it was 82 minutes.
Right. Okay. So yeah, almost an hour and a half there, and it did not feel like it. I remember looking at my watch right before the men's rumble started. I was like, oh, it's 9. Oh, okay. We got maybe another hour, maybe a little bit longer. And when I'm walking out, I'm like, oh crap, it's after 10:30, almost 10:45. So like, I was surprised that it lasted that long. It did not feel that way,
Right.
but except for when I was waiting in line.
Okay. Yeah.
Ladder match was fine, right? Ladder match was fine. It was what it was. It was a great ladder match. All right. And the women's rumble match was fine. The tag team match was completely forgettable. Sorry to DIY. Sorry to the Motor City Machine Guns, but it just is what it is. Neither of those guys are over enough. We needed somebody to take up time at the Royal Rumble. Those 4 dudes ate a bunch of time for us. Thanks to them. The men's Royal Rumble was absolutely fantastic. Okay. And I love the fact that an event called the Royal Rumble gets to walk away with its crown jewel match being the Royal Rumble. Okay. And after a couple of years of Cody and then a year of the Brock Lesnar, right? We just had a lot of rumbles that were just sort of forgettable, and you could really write your exact ending. No one saw Jey Uso coming. Absolutely no one. Nobody on this podcast said Jey Uso. We talked about a lot of the guys who were around near the end. Jimmy even threw out the Logan Paul possibility. And when Logan Paul threw over CM Punk, you could feel it in that building. Everybody was absolutely pissed because they thought Logan Paul was going to win the Rumble. When it was Uso and Cena, oh my goodness, that place, you could feel it. Like literally, you could feel your heart beating and you could feel everybody else's around you's heart beating. They're going back and forth in that match. And then when Jey Uso threw Cena out, everybody kind of looked at each other and was like, Can you believe that? And then we all just started eating because nobody was angry about it. It was fabulous. Chef's kiss to Triple H.
Yeah, I thought they did a terrific job. And coming home, reading through X and everything, the people who were upset. It's like, how can you be upset? We got what we wanted, a surprise ending that actually makes sense. He's literally the most over person in the company. Chris, what would you think overall?
Overall, love the Rumble, right? Always been one of my favorite matches since it got introduced to us, right? Way back when I was, you know, middle-aged man. Anyways, I I feel like Jay probably deserves this. Like we heard the chants, right?
Earned it.
Do we want to see him and Gunther again?
Well, you
So
better
that
get ready because that's who
you
he's
better
going to
get ready.
fight.
That's interesting because it doesn't seem as big of a mania event as other possibilities. But remember, he is the most over person in the company.
But see, Jim, I think what we're going to see here, right, is the age old when the dog chases the bus, right? The dog is extremely excited to chase after the bus, and then all of a sudden the bus stops, and then the dog just kind of stops and looks at the bus because it doesn't really know what to do, right? So I think we all love Jey Uso coming to the ring, and we love the idea of fighting for Jey Uso to be main event. But I think when he gets in the main event and comes down there versus Gunther, we're all going to kind of be like, hmm, uh, I don't know. Something feels a little off here. And so I think that we're going to get the case of, yeah, it was cool to see Jey Uso win the Rumble, but I still kind of feel like Drew or Seth or John or Phil probably should have won the Rumble.
Yeah, I know, but it's okay. We had a fun night. Nikki Bella was number 30, and I don't know if there's one person who wanted to see Nikki Bella at number 30 in that entire arena. We wanted Becky Lynch. A lot of people were chanting for AJ Lee. That was always kind of a pipe dream there. Uh, but
By a
number
lot of
20,
people were chanting for AJ Lee, Chris, Jimmy means himself. He was chanting for AJ Lee.
did I? I can't remember. Um, Charlotte Flair returns, and she took a good 6-7 minutes to get down to the ring, and she earned it. Why not? It's pretty cool when you see someone who has been out with an injury. She's obviously had a lot of personal stuff going on that we found out over the past year. Um, come back and really appreciate coming back. I thought that was pretty cool, Rod.
Oh, come on. You think I'm gonna say anything other than it was absolutely fabulous to see my girl come back when the Queen hit. And then I I'm proud of myself because there were a lot of deriders around me. There was a lot of boos that started ringing out for the Queen. She was taking it pretty hard on Monday Night Raw immediately after the Rumble. So, I continue to be on an island with just a few of my friends as a gigantic Charlotte Flair fan, and that's fine. She works better as a heel. It makes more sense for her to be a heel, but the way that I just said it doesn't feel right for Jey Uso to be in the main event at WrestleMania, even though I loved him winning the Rumble. It feels absolutely right for Charlotte Flair to be in the main event at WrestleMania. Whoever she now chooses, it's a big time match. So it's absolutely perfect. It makes her seem like the big friggin' deal that she is. And yes, Jimmy, I wanted to see Becky Lynch, but I will say maybe there was a pop in the women's Royal Rumble that rivaled the Joe Hendry pop.
It was a last minute deal too, as we've been finding out. Shotzi was supposed to be in that spot, but Alexa Bliss came back, and the place went bananas. Chris, such a huge pop for Alexa Bliss.
Oh, shocking, right? I think everybody around me was shocked to see her, and the crowd let everyone else know because it was, I think, probably the second loudest pop I heard that night.
Alexa Bliss was on maternity leave, so congratulations to her, obviously, for that. Her whole gimmick and with the Bray Wyatt thing obviously went sideways when he passed away. But her coming back and getting that pop was terrific, and the amount of boos when she got thrown out, kind of unceremoniously, which now it makes sense because she just took Shotzi's exact spot. She just did everything that Shotzi was going to do. I thought that was pretty cool. Someone else who got a big pop. Trish Stratus. Let's go. I thought that was cool. I was not expecting Trish Stratus to come back.
I know that there is somebody over in the Janitors League who actually does great business. I will shout out folks over in the Janitors League that do great business, and Tony Storm is doing great business over there
she
right
is.
now as timeless Tony Storm. But timeless Trish Stratus, man. I mean, she looks basically exactly the same walking out for that Royal Rumble on February 1st, 2025, as I remember her looking in 1998 to 2001. I mean, just shout out to poutine or
Yes.
maple syrup or whatever it is that Trish Stratus is hammering down as a Canadian. I'd imagine she's probably not doing a lot of gravy to keep that body, but I don't know. I don't live up in Canada. I'm not sure what she's up to up there, but it was great to see her. She could still go a little bit when she needs to, right? She had a cage match with Becky Lynch a little while back. You know, that wasn't that long ago. So love Trish.
Speaking of Canadians, what is this the biggest pop of the night, Chris? When Chelsea Green came out, the people loved Chelsea Green, loved everything she did, booed again so much when she got thrown out. Chelsea Green, let's go.
Right. This is a wrestler who she was an afterthought to me when I first came back, right?
Uh-huh.
I knew Rod was a fan. I was just like, I don't think I dig this little gimmick, blah blah blah. But over the past year and a half, easily one of my favorite people to watch in the WWE by far. Love everything she does. She's right up there with R-Truth and Dirty Dom for me.
Okay.
What a trio that is.
Also, shout out to Jordan Grace. Just signed with NXT and came in, did a terrific job. The biggest secret for the Rumble, Jordan Grace being there. I think that was a little more obvious than the Joe Hendry, but not too much more obvious than the Joe Hendry.
I was gonna say, you don't actually think that the biggest pop of the night wasn't Joe Henry, do you, Jim? Come on, that place exploded when his music hit.
100% was Joe Hendry. Everyone wanted to do it, and we all got excited. Again, a little bit. He didn't do too much in the Rumble, but he was thrown out by the big dog. So that is important to note that he was thrown out by Roman Reigns.
And shout out to our guy Shamo, right? Always doing great business, just standing in the corner watching him. Then he got mad when he got thrown out.
And then they asked him afterwards, like, no, I was watching him because I thought it was really cool. I was like, that's awesome.
And then they had the little back and forth where it said Sheamus 30 seconds spent believing, and they wanted to put him up for a graphic with Ludwig Kaiser and everybody else.
A slimmed down AJ Styles returned too, and that was a surprise for everybody. AJ, if you remember, he came back, he was jacked and then got hurt right away, which really sucks. But now he's back. Maybe he's going to be a little bit more of the old school AJ Styles. Nice little run here to end the career. I'm excited for it.
It was a little more of the old school music. It was a little more of the slow build to the they don't want none, right? When they were trying to break him in as a little bit more of a bad guy, they kind of sped it up a little bit more, and they didn't have it. It's nobody scared of this redneck. It was the old. I loved it. Love seeing AJ. He's one of those guys that I forgot about. And then when his music popped, I was like, oh my God, the phenomenal one. I looked over at you, Jimmy, and I was like, I literally forgot about AJ Styles. So that was cool. Sorry,
Jacob Fatu, Chris King. You like Jacob Fatu?
No.
You hate Samoans. You hate Roman Reigns. You hate the bloodline. Okay. I get you.
It's the bloodline, right? I love The Rock. I'm a huge fan of The Rock. I don't like the bloodline. Haven't liked them. I'm sorry. I come into this and the bloodline's on top. I'm always a fan of the underdog and the little guy. I don't like the bloodline, and that's going to continue whether it's the OTC bloodline or the new bloodline. I'm not going to like it.
YTC, pardon me, but that's a bullshit marketing thing. Now you want us to buy a YTC shirt? Get the hell out of here. I will tell you who was very excited about I Show Speed being thrown in the Rumble. I don't know who he is. Probably should. He's on a platform that we're on. Gets a little bit more views than we do. Jackson, my son, lost his shit when I Show Speed came out. I was like, okay, apparently he's a big person. that everyone should know. He did die though. Braun Breaker did kill him, unfortunately. So I thought that was kind of a fun.
Let's
moment.
not forget Otis. Our guy Otis got a hold of him when he got thrown out too, and then threw him over the ring. I mean, that was a pretty good bump right there too. So yeah, I show speed. Good for you, dude. You took a hit.
Right on top of the new announcers table.
Yeah,
that thing's strong.
Yep. And then we have our boy Penta.
Our boy.
Both feet hit
Don't
the
put
ground.
me in there.
My boy Penta. They want to. Hey, listen, they're doing everything they can to get him over, and he's doing a good job. He is, but both feet hit the ground. But
wait a minute, you need to tell me what's the saying. What's the saying? I still couldn't figure out what the saying is, and people around me were saying it.
Cien miedo, I believe it is what it is.
That's what he says. He says Cien miedo. That's what he does.
Yeah.
Okay, and that means I'm not afraid, right?
Sure.
I thought I heard somebody saying something about fear or something like that. I have no fear. I thought I heard somebody saying that.
Sorry. Cierro miedo, which means zero fear. Cierro miedo.
Everybody's
zero
looking
fear.
at me like I'm
know.
culturally misappropriating something. I'm like,
No,
no, I'm
you
pretty
were
sure I'm
fine.
right on this.
You're fine. No,
I didn't
you're
take
definitely right on
Spanish.
that.
I took
know. You
French
took
with
French.
Monsieur Peden,
And
so
you
I could
went
take
over
my
to-
2-week trip to Paris.
Yes, and I'm sure
And
that
almost
was a
got
wonderful
deported,
trip.
but that's a story for another show.
I really want to end it on that, honestly, but
Wait, I got to get something off my chest.
Oh,
okay.
Because you guys have done nothing but wax poetic about this guy, telling me I need to watch. Just wait until the Rumble. He comes out, and I don't care about the size of the pop. I was not impressed by your guys' Joe Henry, all right? Coming out there, he looked like a dime store generic Chinese ripoff of a Cody Rhodes is what he looked like.
Oh, Chris is muted. What happened? I don't know. What happened there? Sorry. Go ahead.
Chris, you don't get it. He's supposed to look like that. That's exactly what he's supposed to look like. That's the gimmick. You don't get it, Chris. You're too old to understand.
What gimmick?
Do you think he really thinks that he looks tough when he flips around and does that male model pose, Chris? No. He's supposed to be cheesy. That's the deal. That's the thing. He's like playing the character of a cheesy everyday baby face. That's it, Chris. It's satire.
Like, I believe in Joe Hendry. We believe it. You can do it. He also does some really fun musical interludes. He makes songs about his opponent sometimes. You really don't like Joe Hendry.
He's international, Chris.
His
America, Scotland, Canada, Mexico. Listen, here's something else. I'm going to go here on you, Chris, okay? You're not impressed by Joe Henry. I'm not impressed by LA Knight, okay? Wrestling is sometimes about charisma. You take into account that LA Knight's not a great wrestler because you dig his charisma. I dig Joe Hendry's charisma. Wrestling is a show.
Yeah, that's not the show I want to watch.
What show do you want to watch, Chris? Because all you do is come on here and say people that you don't like. And then the people that you do like are people that everybody else doesn't like. What show do you want to watch?
Are you telling? No, Dirty Dom is probably getting the most heat, pop, love out of anybody in the WWE.
Love?
And you can't. Yes, people love him and they love his character, Rod. Yes, they do. They love having Dirty Dom in the WWE, whether or not they're booing him so he can't talk or cheering for him, putting on a little mini beat down on Gunther for a little bit. People love it.
Then why can't you apply that same knowledge that you're telling everyone that has to apply to Dom Mysterio? Why can't you apply that to, I don't know, anyone in the WWE that's not named Drew McIntyre or Dom Mysterio?
R-Truth, Chelsea Green.
Oh, R-Truth. I love that he picks another guy who hasn't wrestled in, 9 weeks? Chris is like, yeah, I love my guy R-Truth. He never actually wrestles. That's my guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. You guys built
Knight back to me. That's all he does. That's all he got.
You built him up so much.
He built himself up, Chris. That's what you don't understand. He's been wrestling for a long time. Every overnight sensation, Chris, spent 12 years getting themselves there.
That's true.
Well, yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying.
No,
in
you
the
don't
pod,
understand that,
oh,
Chris,
my
because all you want to
word.
do is come on here and crap on Joe Henry. You don't like the blue shirt. You don't like the bleach blonde hair. You don't like the white pants. You
The
don't like the
smile.
choke slam. Yeah, fine. Not
Chris?
everybody can come out and be angry, Chris, and have a hairy chest like Drew McIntyre. Not everybody can do it that way. What do you want? Leather? Is it leather? Is that why you like Drew McIntyre? Do you have some secret leather fantasy? Are you a Judas Priest guy?
No, if you really want to know, is one of the first times I saw him wrestle. I watched him carry a sword out and cut half of the ring in half, and I was like, I can get behind that.
So it's the sword. So if Joe Henry carried a sword, would you like Joe Henry?
I would have liked him more if he came out last night with a sword, yes, or Rumble night with a sword, yes.
What's he going to use the sword in the Rumble for? Drew didn't even
Oh.
get his sword.
I don't know. I have no idea. It's WWE, or you tell
Drew
me
needed
rules
his
are
sword,
meant to
'cause
be
Drew didn't do
broken all
very
the
well.
time.
Did you not
Yeah.
see Joe Henry hold his own in the Rumble and it took Roman Reigns to throw him out? It wasn't like he got thrown out by Tozawa, Chris. It was Roman Reigns.
Well, we know what was going to happen to Sawa. It happened to ISO Speed. Broken
Well,
half, thrown over.
I love the fact that Sheamus, an actual WWE wrestler, stopped what he was doing to watch Joe Henry because he was so enthralled. And
I
he
think it
loved
was
the
shock
character
and
so much.
disbelief, if you ask me. Of course, he couldn't say that to the interviewees after it, but I was there. I saw it. It looked like he had shock and disbelief on his face.
This is blasphemy. This might be the thing that Chris has said that really makes me the most angry. He's had a lot of takes that have
This was
made me
supposed
angry.
to be a fun show, Chris.
Yeah. His
We have the
refusal to
Super
believe
Bowl.
in Joe Henry.
We have the NBA trade deadline, but no.
I just don't, Chris. I mean, all the guy asked you to do is believe. He didn't say that you have to like him. Just believe, Chris.
Believe in
Just
him, Chris.
believe. Just
Believe in Joe Hendry.
I don't.
And with that, you've been listening to the Yeah We Know podcast, part of the More You Know podcast network. You're in there with Jimmy, Rod, and Judas Priest.
I believe in Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry, so prestigious.
Goodbye, net. Yeah.
Believe.
Joe, I'm sorry. We love you.
That was probably the best, 0 minute to hour 16.